The video you're about to watch is a training video. Now, I want you to understand that what I'm teaching in this video is a system or a process. It's not a checklist. Now, I think it's important that you have a checklist. It's good to have that to guide you, but more importantly, I think it's important to have a system or a process that you consistently use. Now, why did I decide to do this? Well, during my career, I have literally walked more than 1,000 apartments that were marked ready in the system. And I can honestly say that every one of them, when I first walked through the door, it looked ready. But when I used the process that you're going to see in this video, not one of them was actually ever ready. And so this video is intended to teach a process so that when people move into an apartment, they have an apartment that is actually ready. And I think it's important because, this is really important for the reputation of our industry. So in doing this video, I realized that I wanted to get it into the hands of as many management companies and as many people as I possibly could. And in order to do that, I needed to find a partner. So I looked for a partner that I felt was perfectly aligned with my business values. And I found that partner in Chadwell Supply. You see, when I go in and speak or train for a client, I want to make sure that I'm 100% committed to their success. And that's what I love about Chadwell Supply, is that as an MRO supplier, they are 100% committed to the success of their clients. They want to deliver unforgettable service, just as I want to deliver unforgettable service. And so as you watch this video, I want to take a moment to thank Chadwell Supply for their generous sponsorship of this video to make this possible. And I hope that you'll find that the process taught in this video changes the way you inspect your apartments going forward. Thank you. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a complete walkthrough. You're going to find that it's very thorough, but it's not some kind of crazy, overcritical, complicated process. It's a simple process, but it's extremely thorough. We're going to open, close, turn on, turn off everything in this apartment. And the purpose of this video is to set a standard for your team, for your leasing team and for your maintenance team, so that they are doing this the same way every time. And the result is your residents get a better quality apartment when they move in. The result of that is a happier resident, higher resident retention, lower costs. So I hope you'll find that this helps. Now, as we get started, there's a couple of things you're going to need. Obviously a pen and a notepad for taking notes on anything that you find wrong. And one of the things I always tell people is it's okay if you find something wrong after it's been deemed turned. It's not okay that somebody moves in and those conditions are still, existing. The other thing that you'll want to make sure your team has is a simple continuity tester. And this will tell whether or not every outlet works. Now, we're not going to check every outlet today in this video. I will check one just so that you can see exactly how this works. And the final thing you're going to need is some kind of a rod. Now, I'm using a simple dowel rod, but if you have blinds that have the rods to open and close them, ask your maintenance team to save when they throw away an old set of blinds, to save one of those rods and leave it with the leasing team. Because unless you're 7 feet tall, you can't reach smoke detectors to check them. And checking the smoke detectors is going to be part of our inspection today. So I'm actually going to have this with me as we walk around the apartment. I'll have the continuity tester a little bit later when we check an outlet. But if you'll come with me, we're going to start at the front door. And the reason why I start at the front door is because obviously that's where the resident starts their new experience. They can't get in the apartment unless they go through the front door. So we're going to start there. And we're going to get on one wall. Doesn't matter if you go left or if you go right. But we're going to get on one wall and we're going to stay on that wall as we move our way systematically through the entire apartment. So come with me as we go to the front door. Now, when we get to the front door, you want to open it. Helps if it's unlocked. You want to open the door, and then you want to close it. And you want to make sure that the door closes and seats without you having to put excessive pressure on it. Now, this has got a good seal around it, so I needed to put a little pressure to get it to close. But then what you want to do is you want to make sure that your deadbolts actually lock without having to push in on the door. What you don't want is for a resident to move in that has a young child, let's say under the age of 10, and they say, hey, go lock the door, and they do this and it hits the plate, but it doesn't actually seat, and that child thinks the door is locked. We operate in the world of Murphy's Law. What can go wrong will go wrong. And that's going to be the apartment where somebody's going to try and come in and realize the door's not locked and enter into that apartment while the residents are asleep. And that could be a real tragedy. So you want to make sure that these actually seat without any pressure on the door. They do. And then while you have them locked, just give a quick pull and make sure that it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. I'm going to look at my hinge pins, make sure my hinge pins are all the way down. That's important for supporting the door when the door swings open. And then I'm going to check my peephole viewer, so excuse me while I turn my back. And I make sure that my peephole viewer, the vision is unobstructed, and it is. Now, any light switch you get to, this is where you're going to turn your lights on and off. Make sure that the light is working. If there's two bulbs, look up and tell whether or not both bulbs are working. If you have an alarm system, you're going to check that, make sure it works. Now we're going to start moving through the apartment. We're going to go to the right. We're going to stay on the right. And as I do, I'm just running my eyes up and down looking. When I get to an outlet like this, because somebody has already tested it with a continuity tester, we're not going to do that on this one, but I always put my hand on it and I make sure it's tight. Now you might ask, well, why do you do that? A loose outlet could mean loose wiring behind the wall. And if those wires come loose, that could become a fire hazard. And so I want to make sure that by putting a little pressure and trying to rub up and down or right or left, that outlet itself doesn't actually move. And this one doesn't, so we're good. And I'm just going to keep moving. I'm going to keep looking. Again, every time you get to a light switch, you're going to turn that light switch on and off, and you're going to check the lights that it controls. These two light switches control lights in the kitchen. Now we're going to move into the kitchen, and this is going to take a little bit of time. It's going to be very thorough. So the first thing I come to here is the refrigerator freezer. I'm going to open it. Little tap on everything in here. Make sure everything is tight. Make sure that your ice tray is clean. It is. I'm going to do the same thing with my refrigerator. I'm going to do a little tap on all these. Make sure that they're secured the way they're supposed to be. Same thing here. Now, one of the things I want to point out is inside the refrigerator is your light, of course, and over your light is a cover. Now, that cover is very important. See, the glass on a light bulb is really thin and breaks easily. And if a resident goes to put, let's say, a jug of sweet tea or something in there that's kind of tall, and they hit that light bulb because the cover's missing, it's going to shatter the bulb, and glass is going to go all over their food, and now the resident has to throw away their food because we didn't make sure that there was a cover over the light bulb. I looked and checked, and it's there, so we're good. Okay, so at this point, refrigerator is clean, it looks good, we're ready to move on. And by the way, before I move, always take a hand and put on your refrigerator, and just make sure that the refrigerator is stable, that it doesn't wobble. You know, this is where a lot of residents will put things like bottles of wine. And if you've got a leg that's not, balanced with the rest of the legs, every time they open and close the refrigerator, it rocks, and that bottle of wine starts to move, and then pretty soon it's on the edge, and boom, down it goes, and we've got a little bit of a mess because our refrigerator wasn't stable. This one's very stable, so we're good. Now, this next step, for those of you who aren't as tall as me, this will be a little complicated, but above this refrigerator, they have cabinets. But you're going to get up there and you're going to open those cabinets and you're going to make sure that the cabinets are clean. Now, I can see this one, but I can't see that one, so I'm going to assume that it's clean because everything in this apartment is very clean. But I can also look and make sure that those little plastic brackets that hold the shelf in place are there and they're not broken. I'm also then going to put my hands on the knobs, and I'm just going to put a little up and down movement to make sure that my hinges are tight, and they are. Okay, and we're going to continue to do this, and we're going to do that with every cabinet. So we're going to open and close, up and down, little tap to make sure that they're secure. I'm looking for cleanliness. Everything looks good. Close it. Same thing with every drawer. I'm going to open and close every drawer. Go all the way to the back with your eyes. Make sure they're clean. You don't have rice or, sticky sauce or anything in the very back that oftentimes people miss because they don't look back there. I'm going to do the same thing down here, and I got to get down, and I'm going to look. I'm going to tap. We're good. Now, when you get to the oven, and I want you to pay close attention to this, we're going to check the oven for what's called the anti-tip bracket. Now, this is a really important thing. The anti-tip bracket has its purpose is to keep the oven from tipping If someone were to open the door and pull out the racks with, say, something heavy like a large turkey at holiday time, that the oven itself doesn't tip. But more importantly, there's a risk. And the risk is you've got something cooking here on the cooktop and you've got a young child who wants to see what you're making. And you turn your back and they open this door and step on it. This oven tips. If you've got boiling water, you've just scolded your child. And so we're going to check that before we do anything else with the oven, because you don't want to do this while the cooktop is hot. So the first thing you check is for an anti-tip bracket. Now the way you do that is you put one hand behind, one hand at the front, and you just try to tip. Well, this one doesn't tip. Well, that tells me that they have an anti-tip bracket in place. And so that's good. Now we're safe to turn everything on. So I turn on all my burners. I'm going to turn on my oven light. The burners are coming on. You don't need to leave them on longer than necessary. They're all good. Turn them all off. Now, the oven has two elements, a bake, which is at the bottom, and a broil, which is at the top. And so I'm going to turn the oven to bake first. So I hit the bake button. On this one, I have to hit start, and I'm going to give it a moment. Now, while that's getting hot, because I need to make sure it works, I'm going to move on. So I'm going to check other things. In this case, I'm going to look inside the microwave. Don't turn the microwave on. It's not good for a microwave to operate if there's nothing in it. So I'm not going to turn it on. And if you want to test it, put a cup of water or something in there and test it. But we're not going to do that today because I don't want to damage the microwave. I'm going to check these cabinets. They're good. Now, these cabinets, I noticed, they're rubbing at the top. And so I would ask my maintenance team to come up and adjust these hinges so that they've got a little bit of spacing and not rubbing like they're doing. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to continue my inspection. Now at this point, the bake elements had enough time to produce some heat. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to check it. Now this is a great oven. It's very new. The bake element's actually underneath the plate, but I can feel the heat, so I know it's working. At this point, I'm going to cancel. I'm going to go to broil, and I'm going to hit start, and I'm going to continue to inspect to allow the top element or the broil element to do its job. So I'm going to check these. Looking again in the back. Here, everything looks good. I'm going to look down underneath, make sure that it's nice and clean. I'm going to move over here. I'm going to do the same thing. Everything is nice and tight. Everything is clean. Looking down. Everything again continues to be clean and in good shape. Doing here. Now, don't forget you got your broil element on. So real quick. Yep, it's red hot. It's working. I'm going to turn that off. Notice the oven light is on. I'm going to now turn that off. The clock is set for the proper time. We're finished with the oven. We can move on. Now, obviously there's a garbage disposal in this apartment, and so the switch for that is over here. But before I turn it on, I want to run cold water into the sink. Now, never run hot water down your garbage disposal, always cold water. So I'm going to turn this over to cold, turn the water on, hit my garbage disposal. It's turning, and I don't hear, piece of jewelry, piece of silverware, plastic spoon or anything down there, so it's good to go. Now, with the stink, I'm going to do this. If it's got a sprayer, I'm going to check the sprayer. I'm going to move it over to hot to make sure that we have both hot and cold water, and it may take a moment. So if it does, this is a good time to check underneath, and you're checking for two things: cleanliness, and is anything leaking? And in this case, it's clean, nothing's leaking. I should have the water, should be warming up by now, and it is. So I'm going to turn that off. When you get over to the dishwasher, a couple of things to check here. Obviously, you're going to open it. Now, the dishwasher has stops. And these stops are designed to keep this drawer from being able to come all the way out. So you want to make sure that those stops are working. You don't want a resident moving in and going to unload the dishwasher and pull this and it doesn't stop and boom on the floor and all their dishes are shattered all over the floor. So we're going to check those on both the top and the bottom. And while you have the bottom out, it's a good time to do a visual inspection to see if it looks clean. Now, a word of caution. Never run your hand across the bottom of a dishwasher to make sure it's clean. Sometimes residents will put glasses of, or wine glasses in the dishwasher, and they break, and that glass is so thin you won't see it, and you'll run your hand over it, and you'll come out with a cut hand and blood everywhere. So don't ever do that. Now that I know it's clean, everything is good, I'm gonna close it, and then if it's got a dial, you're gonna run that dial through just to hear it come on. In this case, it doesn't have a dial, it's got a push button, so I'm gonna hit start, it's energized, it's good, I'm gonna go ahead and turn it off. I'm not gonna actually run it through a cycle. Now, we talked about the continuity tester. So I'm gonna demonstrate an outlet. And so I think the best outlet is this one over here. So let's go this way. And we're just gonna check and see if this outlet is good. Now, if it's good, I'll get these two orange lights will light up. And if it's not, I'll get a completely different signal. So we plug it in and look at that. We've got a perfectly working outlet on both the top and the bottom. Now, if you want to do this during your inspections, that's fine. We won't do that on every outlet just for the sake of time. Now, let me come back and I'm going to finish my walk. So, we've got one more drawer to check. One more cabinet. See, we've got a hinge here that's just a little loose. So I would ask my maintenance team to come in here and tighten that up so that that doesn't move. Because if they move eventually, they're gonna rub the wrong way. And sometimes the resident will push it closed, force it closed, and they'll actually start to break the cabinet door. So we wanna make sure that that's nice and tight. All right, so now we're gonna continue our walk. We've got an outlet here, we're gonna check it. And here, you see, is exactly what I'm talking about. We have an outlet that is actually loose and moves. So I'm gonna want my maintenance team to come in and tighten up that outlet so it can't do that. And before they do, they're gonna take this cover off, they're gonna make sure the connections are tight, then tighten up the outlet and put the cover back on. All right, we're gonna continue as we walk around the apartment. Look under here, everything is clean. You see we have an outlet, check it, nice and tight. And we're just gonna continue. Now this will be the fast part of the apartment or the inspection because there's not a whole lot to check. We're just gonna check our outlets. We're gonna scan the wall. We're just gonna keep moving. Now, and by the way, with this one, the outlet cover is moving, but the outlet itself didn't move. That's okay. When you get to windows, if the window's open, you're going to open the windows, close the windows. If you have blinds, you'll check the screens, you'll check the screens. And we'll do that in a bedroom because those windows open and they have screens. This one, these windows don't open, but no matter what kind of blinds you have, you want to make sure the blinds work. Now, I'm not going to run these all the way down, but you want to make sure that your blinds actually do move and these do. Again, I'm not going to run them all the way down and all the way back up in the video. And then we're just going to continue. We want to make sure we don't have any broken glass. Get to an outlet. Here we have another loose outlet. So we want to make sure our maintenance team knows that this outlet is also loose. It's moving. And we're just going to continue to move around the apartment. Another outlet that's loose. So obviously we've got a little bit of work to do in this apartment. This one also, as you can see, it moves. So we want to take care of that. Now here's our smoke detector. So this is where the rod comes in. You can see I'm a little over 6 feet tall and I can't reach that, but I can with this. So I'm just simply gonna push this in. It works, we're good to go. Now, I get to this and a couple of things are happening here. Now, first of all, when I hit this light switch, nothing happened. What does that tell me? That tells me this light switch is actually connected to an outlet. My guess is it's connected to this outlet. But how does the resident know that? Well, at this property, before move-in, they actually put stickers on the outlet and on the light switch. That's one way. Another way would be to turn this outlet upside down. And you tell the resident when they move in, if you see an upside down outlet, that's wired to a light switch. There's another little trick that I've used over the years. You take the screw from this cover, these two screws from this cover, and dip them in colored paint. Red, blue, yellow, green, whatever color you want, and put them back in, and you tell your resident, if you see an outlet and a light switch with matching paint on the screws, that means they're connected together. However you want to do it is up to you. Now these two most likely control the light and the ceiling fan, and they do. When I hit this one, I could tell the ceiling fan started to slow down, and this one turned the light on and off. Now, one of the things you want to do before you leave the room is you want to come over and you want to check also from the cords. My light is good, and if you can reach it, I'm going to check my different speeds from my ceiling fan. Then I'm going to come back over to the wall, and I'm going to continue my inspection. All right, so now we're about to enter into the bedroom. When you enter a room, you're always going to close the door, make sure it latches. If the door has a lock on it, make sure it locks. Make sure that the handle is tight. Everything looks good. Hinge pins are all the way down. Now, you can see every door should have a door stop. If it has this type of door stop, these actually screw in and out very easily. You want to make sure that they're in far enough they don't come out and then the resident doesn't tell you. The best way to do that is to just kick it. And so I'm going to kick it to make sure that it does what it's supposed to do. Then I'm going to leave my door open and I'm going to continue my walk. Again, this one controls the light. This one turned on the fan, which tells me that this one is most likely going to that outlet. Now I'm going to just continue to walk the wall just as I've been doing. As I go through the apartment, I'm looking at my wall, my baseboards from ceiling to floor. I'm going to continue to check my outlets for tightness, make sure they don't move. Now when you get to this point, there's some things here that are really important. We can no longer buy blinds like this that have cords, which is a good thing, because these cords are a hazard to young children. And if you think, well, does that ever really happen? I can tell you for a fact that it does. I once had to provide a written statement, a written affidavit for a wrongful death suit where a young child about 2 years of age, living in an apartment, got tangled in these cords and strangled to death. In that case, what happened was one of these was missing, and someone from the team took that cord and they just looped it through the other one. Well, then that created a noose, and unfortunately, it strangled this poor child. And so you want to make sure that they're not tied together. They're going to get twisted like this, but that's very different, okay? And that's okay if they're twisted, but you don't ever want them to be tied together, and you don't ever want them to be, looped through one of these little knobs at the end. So then what we're going to do is we're going to pull these open. And now we're going to check our windows. Now these windows are really tough to open. They've got an extra security here and here. So I'm going to unlock, and you think, well, you should open it, right? You can't. You have to pull this and pull this. There you go. You heard it unlock. Now I can raise it, and these windows tilt. Now you don't have to run them all the way up, but you want to run them up enough, take a step back, and make sure that the balances are good, that the window doesn't slam back down. Remember, Murphy's Law, what can go wrong will go wrong. A resident will open a window and it'll slam down on a child's fingers, and that would be awful. Now I'm going to check the screens. Now, a lot of people think that the only reason for a screen is to keep things from getting in the apartment. That's partly true. But it's also to keep things from getting out of the apartment. And so just put your hand on the screen and make sure that the screen is properly seated. Because if that screen's not in where it's supposed to be, and let's say the resident has a cat and they open the window, and the cat likes to sit there, and that screen falls out, now the cat gets out. Worse yet, a child wants to look out and pushes up against the screen falls, and the child tumbles behind the screen. That would be tragic. So you always want to make sure that your screens are nice and tight. I'm not going to check both these windows because I've demonstrated enough for the video, but in your inspections, you're going to want to check both of the windows. Okay, window down. Make sure that it locks in place. It does. Lower your blinds. Make sure that they work properly. Then you're going to make sure that they open and close, which I come over here and I just do that, and we're good. We're going to continue our inspection. And we're just going to continue to walk the wall. Excuse me while I grab my wand because I've got to check another smoke detector. So we're going to continue to inspect, walking the wall, checking everything, make sure everything is tight. I'm going to check this smoke detector. We're good. Sorry about the noise. And we're just going to continue, and we're going to move towards the bathroom. Again, you get to any light switch, turn it on, turn it off, make sure that the light works. If it has multiple bulbs, that all the bulbs are coming on. Go into the closet, check our hinge pins before we open the door. Here's our door stop. We're going to kick it, make sure it doesn't fly off. We're going to open these doors. Hinge pins are good. Lights are on. Now, when you get inside the closet, you want to just put a little pressure, because sometimes these will come loose. Sometimes these will come loose. Sometimes the clips will break, and resin will put something heavy on it, and that shelf will collapse because of the weight. So I'm not going to put excessive pressure, but I'm going to put, and want to make sure this is seated all the way, I'm going to put enough pressure to where I feel confident that the shelving is secure. And in this case, it is. Check for cleanliness. Make sure that your painter actually painted the closet. Sometimes your painter will miss the closet. So we want to check that. We're good. So we're going to exit the closet. In this case, you can see it uses a system to keep the door closed. This little ball up here with a spring. And I'm pushing down on it. It moves. And it's present. We're good. These will actually come loose and they'll fly right out. And then there's nothing that will keep that in place. This is my light switch. Turns on and off. Leave it off, because somebody else is paying the electric bill on the vacant apartment, and that would be the property. Here's my other door stop. Now we're going into the bathroom. At this point, I'm gonna leave my rod because we've checked all the smoke detectors. We're gonna go into the bathroom, and we have several things in here we're going to check. So come on. We're gonna turn on all of our lights, making sure that they all work. Now, when you get in here, we've got a few things we're gonna check with the tub. The shower curtain rod, it's nice and tight. Now, you want to point your shower head a little bit away from you, not all the way over to where it's spraying all over the wall, but enough to where it doesn't spray on you. And then we're going to turn this guy on. Now you can see right now it's coming out of the tub. We're going to pull this up, comes out of the shower head. Now, one of the things you want to do is you want to make sure that all the water is coming out that way. None of it's going back towards the wall. One of the ways you can do that is cup your hand behind it. It's dry. My hand is dry, so that's good. Now we're gonna check our water. We have hot, and we want to make sure that we have cold, and we do. There's our tub stopper works. So we're good with the shower. Everything there is good. Now when you get to all your racks and bars in the bathroom, these are notorious for falling off on the resins. Give a little smack. Don't go crazy and push down on them, you'll break them. But these are nice and tight as they should be. Again, you're hitting your light switches. This is my bathroom fan. I can hear it. It's running, so we're good there. Same with all your cabinets, just like in the kitchen. Clean, secure. The doors aren't hitting, they're tight. Now with your toilet, you can check your toilet seat. Toilet seat should move two directions, up and down, should not move left and right. And so I'm going to look in the toilet, make sure it's clean, and I'm gonna grab my toilet seat and make sure that it doesn't actually move left and right, and it doesn't. Then I'm gonna flush my toilet. And I'm gonna look and make sure that I have caps over the bolts. Those caps are to protect the bolts from getting urine on them, which is very acidic. And if you ever have to pull the toilet and you can't get those bolts off, it's a really hard job to pull the toilet. So those caps are really your friend if you ever have to remove the toilet. We've got a toilet paper holder here. Tap on that. Okay, so we're just going to do the same thing with all of our cabinets, making sure that everything looks good. We're going to look under this one again in a moment after we turn on the water. But I'm going to finish the cabinets first. Okay, so everything is good. The last thing we have to check is the faucet. So we want to make sure we get hot water and cold water. You notice I'm going to stop up my sink. I'm going to run my hot and cold. They're both working as they should. I'm going to turn the water off. It's holding. Now I'm going to see how it drains. It appears to be draining extremely well. I have no leaks. There's one more thing to check. Reach down and grab your sink stopper and make sure it doesn't actually pull out of the faucet, that it's actually connected in the drain in the back, and this one is, so we're good. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to close the door on you and make sure that the door closes and make sure it locks. It does. Now, we're going to pan back around because we have a condition in here. Our hinge pins are coming out of this door, and you'll see that in a moment when you come back inside. You can see all three of them are coming out. So I'm going to ask maintenance to come in here with a hammer and tap those down because I want those hinge pins seated all the way down. All right, this is our HVAC closet. It's locked, don't have access to it, so we're not going to do anything in there. We're just going to continue to our inspection. Everything is good. We're almost through. Just a few more things to check. So when you get to the thermostat, depending on what type of thermostat you have, depending on what kind of heating and air conditioning system, and it depends whether you're in New England, whether you're here in Texas where we are today, you have different types of systems, different types of thermostats. Here they have a Honeywell smart thermostat. But if you touch this thermostat, it will allow you to control it. And what you want to do is any function that your system has, you test that function. We're not going to do it today, but if you have fan only, you're going to turn that on. Heating, you're going to turn that on. It may require you to run your temperature way up to get the heat to come on. Cooling, turn that on. You want to make sure that everything cycles on and off the way it's supposed to, that the thermostat works in every one of those functions. Okay? And we're just going to continue. We're going to check our door stops. We're going to go into this closet. This is where they have the washer and dryer. And so we're going to make sure that they're clean. We're going to open them with your dryer. You're going to pull out your lint trap. Make sure it's clean like this one is. We're not going to do this in the video, but you're going to want to turn it on. Make sure it works. Be careful turning on your dishwasher. Your washing machine, because you don't want to turn it on and then leave water in it. But you're going to make sure that they're all clean. Make sure that you can get the door open if I can figure out how to open the door on this. If you have a trap like this or a dispenser, make sure that you don't have old soap caked in it. This one does not. And I'm pretty sure that I'm not going to figure out how to open this door. There it is. Couldn't find the handle. It's on the inside. Make sure it's clean. And so then we're going to check all of our shelving. Make sure this room was painted. We're going to open this and make sure that all of our breakers are in the on position. Sometimes you'll turn certain breakers off while the apartment's vacant. That's a management decision. But before the resident moves in, make sure you go back in and turn on all those breakers. We're good. This is nice and tight. So we're through in here. Light turned off. Check this door stop. And guess what? We are back where we started. So as you can see, without the instruction, this will take you about 15 to 20 minutes. I didn't get crazy. I didn't put on white gloves or get on my back with a flashlight. Didn't do anything, really labor intensive, but I was very thorough. Again, the goal is to make sure that when a resident moves into an apartment, they move into one that has zero controllable items. What is a controllable item? It's something that you should have found, could have found, and you would have taken care of had you found it. In this case, we have a few light switches, outlets that are loose. So we're going to have maintenance go back in and take care of that. We've got a couple of drawers or cabinet doors in the kitchen that are hidden. We're going to have them take care of that. We've got one loose cabinet door. We're going to have them tighten that up. Other than that, this apartment is in great shape. It'll take the team about 15 minutes to come back in and do everything that we found today, and then this apartment will be absolutely perfect. I use a scoring system, and my scoring system is, if I find something that's cosmetic, it's a 1-point deduction. If something's broken or missing, it's a 2-point deduction. If it's a safety item like a smoke detector not working, a lock that won't lock, a broken window, those are 3-point deductions. And I start every apartment at a 100, and I deduct as I find things, and as I find them, that gives us our final score. When we go back in and fix those things, it gets us back to a 100. So my standard is no one moves into an apartment until it's a 100. And as I mentioned in this case, it would be easy to get this back to a 100. Listen, I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, you can email me, bill@billnyeapartmentguy.com, or you can check out my website, which is www.billnyeapartmentguy.com. So thank you again for watching. I hope this video was informative. I hope that it changes the way that you inspect your apartments going forward to get a more consistent and a better outcome for the residents. But most importantly, thank you to Chadwell Supply for their generous support. Remember, Chadwell Supply is the nation's largest privately owned MRO supplier to the multifamily industry. They're committed to your success. And so a big shout out to Chadwell Supply. If you're not their customer, please check them out at chadwellsupply.com. And check out my services, Bill Nye Training, at billnyeapartmentguy.com. Thank you.